What is a kill zone? A kill zone is basically an area where we're looking to enter, right? Where we look to enter the trade, right? We don't look to enter anywhere else other than the kill zone with the strategy that we're using. Now, what a kill zone basically is at its basic level, right? It's a support or resistance line, right? And that's going to depend on the type of trend you're on most of the time. Okay, you're really just looking for an area where a price has rejected before, and to be more defined, you're looking for the most recent area price has made a major rejection where it either started a continuation, which is an impulse, or it started a pattern, right? Whether the start of the pattern or the end of the pattern. Those are your kill zone areas. Now I'm gonna make a quick little example in an uptrending market. So here, let's just draw the entire uptrend. And a lot of you, I'm sure, already know about this, but I don't see it being utilized, at least in the full strategy that I'm going to show you guys too often. But here we obviously have an uptrend. Okay, now we have an impulse, we have our pattern, then we have our continuation pattern. We have our impulse, we have our pattern, continuation, right? Now after this first impulse, pattern, and continuation, what we then look for as that continuation has started, or as this pattern has started, so imagine we don't see to the right of this. As that pattern has started, we're saying, okay, where could this pattern go down to, and where should I look to enter? Okay, that is when the kill zone comes into play. That's when we determine that. And that area is simply going to be the top of the previous impulse, or the top of the previous pattern. Whichever way you want to say it, it's pretty much all the same thing. Okay, and then as price comes down to it, once price gets there, we look for our entry pattern, which we'll talk about in a later video. We find our entry pattern. Once it's there, we enter, and bada bing bada boom. Like there's you're looking for the continuation play out. There's not much after that, guys. So but this is what it looks like in a bullish market. Let's go ahead and do a few more examples. We have this impulse, we have this pattern. As that pattern begins, as we start to notice corrective movement, we say, okay, this is our kill zone where we're looking for price to come down to, and that is the area that we would be looking to enter at. Anything before then, if we get a huge engulfing candle within that pattern that happens before price reaches this, we do not care about it. We're not worried about entering for price. We're not worried about an entry until price gets to this zone. Okay, we're not worried about an entry until price gets to this zone, period. And then obviously these two, we have an impulse coming up, we're waiting on this correction to come down, we're looking for the correction to come down here, and we're not looking for an entry until price gets there. So here we see our pattern has begun. We got this huge impulse, our pattern has begun. We're going to start our kill zone at the top of the previous impulse, just like the rest of them. And as price continues, we're still waiting for price to scale down all the way to that zone before we even think about entering. Then price gets there, we look for our entry pattern, and boom. Now it's the same thing for a sell. The only thing is it's upside down. Okay, so let's say price breaks this uptrend that we have here, gives us an impulse down, get our correction. Where would our kill zone be for this? Because there's no previous impulse or correction, at least to the downside, so there's not really a good area to determine where we should look to sell at this point. All right, well, if we look at our previous or the closest kill zone to it, it's going to be right here at this level. That's still an area. Like I said, these are kind of like support and resistance levels, or they really are support and resistance levels. Okay, and like with anything we talk about, you can utilize it on any pair as long as you recognize your impulse and correction, and you're actually looking for an entry setup in that situation. Okay, so we're saying we want price to reach this point. Once it reaches there, we're looking for an entry, and then we're looking to sell it. Now we got that sell. Let's say our correction has started, our pattern has started to form. We then put our new kill zone bottom of the previous impulse, right there. Looking for price to retest that area. Now if it gets there, we'll look for an entry and look to sell. Keep on doing it back and forth. Okay. Now if we look to the left, I will say, just in case anyone had that question at the front, at the beginning, well, how do I know at the start of a bullish trend where my kill zone is? Okay, you're still looking to the left and you're looking at previous support and resistance lines, right? Usually before price turns around, it's a nice little ascending channel, and I won't dig too deep into patterns in this lesson. I'm assuming you guys have a pretty good understanding of it and done your homework on it, so it should be pretty easy. You have this descending channel. Now the kill zone that you're looking for price to actually come to is the top of that channel, about that area, right? Okay, and obviously if it goes lower, you're looking at another support resistance level within that ascending channel, right? Now with this, you're not going to have all these zones on your chart or you don't want to have all these zones on your chart. You don't want to clutter your screen with stuff that doesn't even matter anymore, right? So as price progresses, you're really deleting these lines here or these zones here because they're not useful to you for the next setup that's coming. Why continue to have something on your chart that's no longer useful to you? You know the trend line's broken, so it's over. So now you're just looking for sales here. You have a downtrend. If you need to draw the downtrend, you can draw it. And this is the kill zone that you're paying attention to. All the other kill zones are irrelevant. Okay, so it's not support and resistance lines that you're drawing like this is support and resistance line, this is support and resistance line. If this price gets here, this is what I'm gonna do. Price gets here. Like, don't focus on everything at one time. Centralize your focus on one thing at a time, one scenario at a time, instead of thinking of all the different possible scenarios that could possibly happen within the next 5 years. Especially if you're day trading. You don't need all those lines on your chart, at least in my opinion. Okay, but at the end of the day, it's your chart. You can do what you want to do with it. But let's go ahead and find a few examples. One of my favorite pairs to actually see this on, or probably the easiest pair to see this on, at least to me, is AUD JPY. Okay, all the impulses and corrections or the kill zones on this are just so clear and cut. To me, it's really easy to explain it. But let's go ahead. This is a good spot to start. Start here. We can clearly see we have a nice little impulse there. We have a bullish flag here. And let me zoom in just so it's a little bit clearer. We have a bullish flag there, and price gave us our continuation. Now, following that, you can see we have a strong impulse, and we can see price is beginning to move correctively. All right, it hasn't really continued up much. It's just really moving sideways at the moment. We need to see if it pulls back or continues up, so we can get a good idea as to what pattern could potentially forming. So we play a few more candles, but now that we recognize that there's corrective movement, we want to take our kill zone and we want to say this is the top of the impulse of the previous impulse. So this is the area that I'm actually looking for price to come down to, and the area I'm looking to buy at if it does give me a continuation pattern or a bullish continuation pattern. As we continue to wait, price has gotten here, and this is the point where we recognize our trend or our pattern, and we also look for our entry patterns. Okay, again, next few lessons I'll talk about that. If we get an entry pattern, we go ahead and enter at that place, and we're looking for price to continue up from that point. Let's see if it does. And it does, and we got a new impulse here. Okay. Ooh. Now the new impulse has started. We're waiting for a pattern to show up. We see prices making some sort of retracement. No pattern is clear yet, but if a pattern forms and price comes down, we're looking for an entry at the top of the previous correction. And if it doesn't get there, we don't enter. If it does get there, we look for an entry. If we get our entry pattern, we go ahead and enter, and we look to see if it continues in that direction or not. All right. And it does, giving us a new impulse. Again, it's just rinse and repeat. We're doing the same exact thing. We have an impulse. We're waiting for a correction to form. No correction has really formed yet. But if a correction does form, we're looking for it to retest the top of the previous impulse. If it gets down to there, we're looking to enter. If it doesn't, we don't. All right, real simple. Now, at this point, you don't have that final confirmation telling you hit the button right now, right? You just know, okay, in this area I'm looking to enter, but what am I looking for? When do I know that I should hit the button or not, right? And that's going to be gone over in our entry pattern lesson. Entry pattern lesson is it's really straightforward. It's just getting used to the patterns just like you did the other patterns, but they're not as, you don't have to be as patient. It doesn't take as long for these particular patterns to actually form. Now, that is the Killzone is in its essence, okay? Now, once you understand that, we're going to add another layer to this, okay? We understand where our Killzones should be based off. We understand where we should be placing our Killzones. But if we go back to our Fibonacci's, right? We also need to implement our Fibonacci's. Let's go to this one since it's right in the middle. We saw price came down to this point, right? Or let's rewind. Let's say we're waiting for price to get down to the zone, waiting for a corrective pattern to form and price to get down to the zone. What we want to do once our correction has started, or we've noticed some corrective movement, we take our Fibonacci's. We take our Fibonacci's, start it from the bottom of the impulse, bring it to the top of the impulse, and then we see if our Killzone is laying over one of the Fibonacci levels. If it is, we fine tune it so it's like right over that Fibonacci level. In that way, we start to notice our confirmations. We're building our confirmation list, right? We have an impulse, okay? We potentially have a pattern. The pattern hasn't actually formed yet. It hasn't completely formed. But we're waiting on a pattern. We have a Fibonacci level that is laying over a Killzone level. Okay, so that means impulse, potential pattern, Fibonacci, Killzone. That's 4 confirmations. 4 things telling you there's a buy opportunity here. Impulse going up, there's a buy opportunity. Possible correction coming down, there's a buy opportunity. Killzone, if price gets to the Killzone, there's a buy opportunity. Fibonacci's laying over that Killzone, there's a buy opportunity. Okay, you have about 4 confirmations telling you to buy right now, or at least in this area. It's a good idea, and that's pretty good foundation to tell you, okay, or should give you a little bit more confidence to actually take that trade in that situation. That's what I meant to say. But let's go find a bearish example. And again, like everything, works on every time frame. This is a pretty nice bearish example, and you can see this is on the daily time frame. So right here we have a strong impulse coming down, and let's hit the rewind button so we can all focus on the same area. We have an impulse coming down. We take our Killzone, we see bottom of the previous impulse is right about there, so we place that there. We see price isn't really in that zone just yet, but let's go ahead and fine tune this zone before this pattern goes ahead and finishes up. We take our fibs from the top of the impulse, bring it all the way down to the bottom of it. We can see price is right on the 50. And what we remember about the 50 is that price usually takes back 50% of its move. Price usually goes back to the 50 Fibonacci level. So most of the time you'll see this happen. Okay, so take our trend line. What type of pattern do we have forming here? We have 2 touches on the low. We have 1 touch above so far, but we're looking for price to come right back into that Killzone and possibly give us another. So that would be an ascending triangle potentially. And you have bearish confirmation, so it's a possible sell here in this situation. So We have all those confirmations telling us to look for a sell. You see price got to that area, and actually has the pattern changed? No, actually I'll call it more of a pennant at this point. And it sells off. Okay, that's our setup at its basic points. There's just one more thing which will be talked about in the next video that really puts it all together and really leaves no question as to what you should be doing in what situation. Okay. But if you guys do have any questions over this, go ahead and let me know, and I will get back to you as soon as possible.